The stillness of the night enveloped Jaden like a comforting blanket, but within him, a storm raged. He had always found solace in the shadows, a sanctuary where the world faded away, leaving only the echoes of his father's laughter. Tonight, however, the weight of memories felt heavier than usual. Jaden leaned against the cold stone of the memorial, its surface worn from the touch of countless hands, each one searching for a connection to the past. He ran his fingers over the engraved letters, tracing the name of a man he had only known through stories and the bittersweet remnants of love left behind. Jaden had always been introspective, a quiet observer of life around him. He preferred the company of his thoughts to the chatter of the world. In high school, while others reveled in the noise of parties and friendships, he often found refuge in the local library or the nearby park. His friends would call him a dreamer, but they didn't understand the depth of his dreams, the longing to bridge the gap between the past and present, to feel his father's presence in a world that had moved on without him. Yet, every night, as darkness blanketed the park, he returned to the memorial. It was his ritual, a way of honoring the man who had sacrificed everything for his country. Each visit was a pilgrimage, a way to converse with the spirit of his father, who had become a figure of strength and sacrifice in Jaden's mind. He imagined what it might have been like if they had had more time together. Would they have shared stories over a campfire? Would his father have taught him how to ride a bike or play catch? This yearning for connection was a constant ache in his heart, an emptiness that no amount of time could fill. As he stood in the moonlight, a soft breeze whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves in a symphony of nature's lullaby. Jaden closed his eyes, allowing the tranquility of the night to wash over him. But just as he began to lose himself in the memories, a sharp noise broke the silence. The sound of stumbling footsteps echoed through the stillness, growing louder and more chaotic. Jaden opened his eyes and turned his head, watching as a figure emerged from the shadows. The young man staggered into view, a half-empty bottle clutched tightly in one hand, his other arm swinging wildly for balance. The air around him was thick with the smell of alcohol, a pungent reminder of the reckless abandon that often accompanied a night out. Jaden felt a surge of anger rise within him as he watched the stranger approach the memorial. He felt an instinctual need to protect the sacredness of the place, a fierce loyalty to the memory of his father that propelled him forward. The young man stopped in front of the plaque, swaying slightly as he squinted at the engraved letters. In a moment that felt suspended in time, Jaden's heart sank as he witnessed the unthinkable. The figure leaned forward, the contemptuous act of spitting on the memorial freezing Jaden in place. It was as if the world had come to a standstill, the air thick with disbelief and hurt. How could someone disrespect the sacrifices made by men and women who had given everything? Fury ignited within Jaden, a volcanic eruption of emotions that he could no longer contain. He stepped out from the shadows, his voice steady but fierce as he called out, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The young man turned, surprise flitting across his face, quickly replaced by a defiant smirk. "What's it to you, man? Just a stone, right?" His arrogance was palpable, a mask for the insecurities that Jaden could sense beneath the bravado. But Jaden refused to let the encounter escalate into violence. Instead, he felt an overwhelming urge to share his story, to open a window into the life of a man who had once stood where he was now. "That's not just a stone," Jaden said, his voice carrying the weight of his grief. "That's my father's name. He died serving this country, fighting for people like you. Do you even understand what that means?" The young man's expression shifted, confusion mingling with the remnants of his bravado. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, he shifted uncomfortably, his bravado faltering in the face of Jaden's raw honesty. The anger simmering within Jaden began to morph into something else, a desire for understanding, a chance to reach the young man in front of him. "My dad was a hero," Jaden continued, his voice softening as he spoke. "He believed in something bigger than himself. He fought not just for glory, but for the freedom we take for granted every day. Every time I come here, I remember his laughter, the way he would tell stories about his time in the service. He was my hero, As Jaden spoke, he saw the flicker of emotions crossing the young man's face. The bravado that had once shielded him began to crumble, revealing a vulnerability that struck a chord within Jaden. "I lost my dad when I was just a kid," Jaden confessed, feeling an unexpected kinship with the stranger. "I wish I had more time with him. I wish I could show him how much I love him, how proud I am of him. But instead, I'm here alone with my memories." The young man's eyes softened, the bravado replaced by something deeper, a flicker of empathy. Jaden could see the walls he had built around himself starting to crack. "I didn't mean to," the young man began, his voice shaking as the weight of reality settled over him. "I didn't know. I was just angry." Jaden took a step closer, sensing the distance between them begin to close. "We all have our battles, don't we? But disrespecting those who fought for us won't change anything. It won't fill the void we feel." Something shifted in the air, a palpable connection forged between two souls who had been lost in their own darkness, unaware of the light that could shine through understanding and compassion. The young man's facade crumbled completely as tears welled in his eyes. He dropped to his knees, the weight of his actions crashing down on him like a tidal wave. "I'm so sorry," he choked out, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean it. I don't know what's wrong with me." In that moment, Jaden felt a surge of hope. Here, in the shadows of sorrow and regret, a bridge was being built. "It's okay," Jaden said softly, kneeling beside him. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we choose to move forward." Together, they knelt at the memorial, a young man seeking redemption and a son longing for connection. The night air, once filled with tension and bitterness, transformed into a sacred space of healing and understanding. They began to wipe the plaque clean, a simple act that felt monumental in its significance. As they worked side by side, their shared silence spoke volumes, weaving the threads of their stories into a new narrative, one of resilience, empathy, and the power of connection in the face of adversity. Each swipe of the cloth against the stone was a step toward forgiveness, not just for the past, but for the promise of a better future. Forever changed by the night, they met beneath the watchful stars. The moon hung high above the park, casting a gentle glow that illuminated the faces of two young men, each carrying the weight of their own burdens. Jaden's heart softened as he continued to wipe away the remnants of the young man's reckless actions, the cloth gliding across the cold stone surface, revealing the name that had been tarnished just moments before. Each stroke felt like an act of defiance against the anger and pain that had brought them together. "Thank you," the young man said, his voice a whisper barely cutting through the stillness of the night. There was sincerity in his tone, a rawness that hinted at the turmoil he had been grappling with. "I'm sorry for what I did. I don't know why I thought it was okay. I've been struggling." Jaden paused, glancing sideways at the young man, who had now pulled his knees to his chest, vulnerability etched across his features. "What do you mean?" Jaden asked gently, instinctively sensing that there was more to his story. The young man inhaled deeply, and Jaden could see the conflict playing out behind his eyes, as if he were wrestling with the demons that had driven him to this moment. "I've been angry for so long," he admitted, his voice cracking. "Angry at the world, at myself. I made a lot of mistakes, and it feels like I'm just in this endless cycle. I thought if I acted tough, maybe it would help me forget, but it just made things worse." Jaden nodded, understanding the weight of those words more than he could express. "I get it," he replied, his own memories surfacing unbidden. "Sometimes it feels easier to give in to anger than to confront the hurt. I've been there too. Losing my dad, it's like a part of me is always missing. I thought I could fill that void by being strong, but it didn't work. Instead, it just left me feeling lost." The young man looked at him, curiosity mingling with his pain. "How do you cope? How do you keep going?" Jaden hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's not easy. I come here, to this memorial, to remember my dad. Each time I visit, I try to honor him by sharing his story, by keeping his memory alive. It reminds me that even in the darkest times, There is light to be found in love and sacrifice. The young man listened intently, his expression shifting from sorrow to contemplation. You're brave, he finally said, a hint of admiration in his voice. I don't think I could do that. I've just been running away from everything. Bravery isn't about not feeling fear, Jaden replied, a warmth spreading through him at the budding connection between them. It's about facing it head on. It's about taking small steps, even when it feels impossible. You're here now, right? That counts for something. For a moment, they shared a silence thick with understanding. Two souls lost yet somehow intertwined in their shared grief and struggle. The night enveloped them in its embrace, and they resumed their task, wiping the stone as if each stroke could somehow erase the pain of the past and fortify the hope of the future. As they worked side by side, Jaden couldn't help but wonder about this young man's story. What's your name? He asked, breaking the silence that had settled over them. Evan, the young man replied, glancing up with a shy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And you? Jaden, he said, feeling a sense of camaraderie building between them. So, Evan, what brings you out here tonight? Is this a usual spot for you? Evan shrugged, his expression shifting as he seemed to retreat inward. I used to come here a lot, but not for good reasons. I was just drinking away my problems. I've been lost for a while, just trying to escape. Jaden's heart ached for him. Sometimes it feels like escaping is the only option, but it never truly works, does it? It just pushes us deeper into our pain. Yeah, Evan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could drown it out, but it just comes back stronger. Jaden took a deep breath, feeling a surge of empathy for Evan's plight. He said carefully, my dad used to say that the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to feel lost. What matters is whether we choose to confront that struggle or let it consume us. Evan nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in thought. You make it sound so simple, but how do you actually do that? It starts with acknowledging the pain, Jaden explained. For me, coming here and honoring my dad helps. It's a reminder that I'm not alone, that others have fought and sacrificed. It gives my pain purpose. Evan looked thoughtful, his earlier bravado now replaced by genuine introspection. I never thought about it that way. I've been so wrapped up in my own anger that I forgot there are people who've faced much harder things than I have. That's the truth, Jaden said, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. We can find strength in shared stories. You're not alone in this fight, Evan. We all have our battles, and it's okay to seek help. The air between them shifted once more, the weight of their shared experience creating an invisible bond. They finished wiping off the memorial, and Jaden stepped back to admire their work. The plaque gleamed under the moonlight, a testament not only to his father's legacy, but to the unexpected connection forged between two strangers amidst grief and regret. As they stood side by side, Jaden felt a new sense of purpose blossoming within him. Evan, maybe we can help each other. I come here every night. It could be a good place for you to start healing too. You can share your story, and I can share mine. Maybe together we can find a way to honor those we've lost, even when it feels impossible. Evan's eyes widened, surprise flickering across his features. Really? You want to do that? Absolutely, Jaden replied, sincerity lacing his words. We all need someone who understands. I think that's how we begin to heal. Evan let out a shaky breath, relief washing over him. I'd like that. I really would. In that moment, beneath the watchful stars, a pact was formed, a promise to support one another, to share their burdens and find solace in companionship. Jaden felt a sense of lightness rising within him, as though the weight of his own grief had been lessened by the act of reaching out. As they stood together in the night, the park around them seemed to come alive with possibility, each rustle of leaves a gentle reminder that healing could begin in the most unexpected places. Together, they took their first step towards redemption, their stories intertwining like the branches above them, creating a canopy of hope in the darkness. Jaden and Evan lingered at the memorial, the moonlight casting soft shadows around them. The air felt different now, charged with a sense of possibility and newfound connection. As they stood, an unspoken understanding settled between them, a bond forged in shared vulnerability. The weight of their individual burdens felt a little lighter, shared in the silence that enveloped them. "Why don't you tell me about your dad?" Evan asked, breaking the silence. "What was he like?" Jaden felt a familiar pang in his chest, a mix of pride and longing. He was larger than life, you know? A true hero in every sense of the word. He had this incredible ability to make people laugh, even in the darkest moments. I remember how he would tell stories about his time in the service, how he would light up when talking about his friends, the camaraderie they shared. His voice grew softer, laced with nostalgia. He always emphasized the importance of loyalty and sacrifice. I think that's why it hurts so much seeing someone disrespect what he stood for. Evan listened intently, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. "That sounds amazing. I wish I had someone like that in my life." Jaden turned to face him, sensing the depth of Evan's longing. "What about you? What's your story?" Evan hesitated, the shadows flitting across his face. "I never really knew my dad. He was gone before I was even born. My mom raised me alone, and she worked really hard to make ends meet. I guess I always felt a bit lost without that father figure. I tried to fill the void in other ways, but it just led me down a darker path." Jaden felt a pang of sympathy for Evan. "It's tough when you don't have that connection. I can't imagine what you've gone through." Evan nodded, his gaze focused on the ground. "I made a lot of mistakes trying to find my way. Drinking, hanging out with the wrong crowd, it felt like I was searching for something that was just out of reach." He looked up at Jaden, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But tonight made me realize that maybe I've been looking for answers in all the wrong places." Jaden felt a stirring in his heart, a flicker of hope igniting within him. "It's never too late to start over, Evan. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward from here." Evan wiped at his eyes, a fresh resolve forming in his gaze. "You really believe that, don't you?" "Absolutely," Jaden replied, his voice steady. "We all have the power to define our own paths, even if it feels overwhelming at times. It takes courage to confront our shadows, but I think that's where the real growth happens." As they continued to talk, the night deepened around them, the world outside the park fading into a distant memory. They shared stories and laughter, both men finding solace in the connection that had blossomed in the most unexpected of places. Jaden spoke of his father's love for the outdoors, how they would spend weekends camping under the stars, and how those moments had become sacred memories for him. Evan listened intently, captivated by Jaden's words. "I've never really had that. I always felt like there was something missing, you know? I think I got so caught up in my anger that I forgot to look for the good things in life." Jaden nodded, sensing the shift in Evan's perspective. "It's easy to get lost in the darkness, but sometimes we just need to open our eyes to what's around us. There's beauty in even the smallest moments." Evan smiled for the first time, a genuine expression that lit up his face. "You're right. I've been so focused on what I've lost that I forgot to appreciate what I still have. Like this moment, right now." "Exactly," Jaden said, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "This is what it's all about, finding those moments of connection, even when it feels like everything is falling apart." As the night wore on, they found themselves sharing more than just stories. They exchanged dreams and aspirations, hopes for a future that felt uncertain yet brimming with potential. Jaden spoke of his desire to honor his father's legacy by becoming a teacher, to inspire the next generation to value love, sacrifice, and empathy. Evan, in turn, revealed his longing to turn his life around, to channel his energy into something positive instead of destructive. "What if I told you I've always wanted to help people?" Evan said, his voice filled with newfound determination. "Maybe I could volunteer or mentor others who've gone through similar struggles." Jaden's heart swelled at the thought. "That's a fantastic idea. You have so much to offer, Evan. You've experienced pain firsthand. That gives you a unique perspective that can help others." Evan's eyes brightened at the suggestion. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. You've already taken the first step by coming here tonight and confronting your anger. That takes courage, Jaden said, feeling excitement bubbling within him. Imagine how many lives you could touch if you shared your story. Evan nodded slowly, a flicker of hope igniting in his expression. I've never thought about it that way. I always felt like I was just a screw-up, but maybe I can turn that around. The conversation flowed seamlessly, each word bringing them closer together. They found solace not just in their shared experiences, but in the realization that they were both capable of change. The night wore on, and the stars twinkled above, bearing witness to the transformation taking place beneath them. As the first light of dawn began to break, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Jaden and Evan stood together at the memorial. The plaque, now gleaming and restored, seemed to shine with a renewed energy, reflecting the hope that had blossomed between the two young men. "Thank you for tonight," Evan said, his voice sincere. "I didn't realize how much I needed this." Jaden smiled, feeling a warmth radiate from within. "Thank you for being open to it. I think we both needed to find each other tonight." As they stood side by side, the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over the park. In that moment, Jaden felt a sense of peace wash over him, the shadows of the past beginning to lift. He knew that while the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, they were no longer alone. Together, they had discovered a path toward healing, one filled with connection, understanding, and the promise of brighter days ahead. With a final glance at the memorial, they turned to leave, stepping into the light of a new day, ready to embrace the possibilities that awaited them. Their stories were now intertwined, a testament to resilience, friendship, and the power of empathy, a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, the dawn would always follow. Jaden and Evan walked away from the memorial, their footsteps lightened by a shared understanding that had blossomed under the moonlit sky. The sun was slowly rising, casting a warm glow over the park, illuminating their faces with the promise of a new beginning. Jaden felt a rush of emotions, relief, hope, and a sense of purpose. He glanced sideways at Evan, who seemed transformed, a newfound determination etched across his features. As they strolled through the park, the world around them began to awaken. Birds chirped cheerfully, their songs weaving through the crisp morning air. Jaden took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of dew-kissed grass and blooming flowers. "You know," he said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them, "I never thought I'd find someone who understands the way you do. It's like we're both searching for something." Evan nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. "Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How we both ended up here at this moment. I feel like I've been wandering aimlessly for so long, and then tonight, everything just clicked." Jaden smiled, feeling a surge of camaraderie. Sometimes, the universe has a way of bringing people together when they need it most. It's like we were meant to meet tonight. Evan chuckled softly, shaking his head in disbelief. Maybe it was fake. I mean, I came here to drown my sorrows, and instead, I ended up connecting with you and hearing about your dad. It's kind of mind-blowing. Life can be unpredictable like that, Jaden replied, glancing up at the sky as the sun peaked over the horizon. But I think it's those unexpected moments that often lead us to where we need to be. As they walked, Jaden felt a sense of urgency to share more about his father, to keep his memory alive in the heart of someone who had once stood in defiance of what he represented. "You know, my dad loved to tell stories. He'd sit us down by the fire and talk about his adventures, the lessons he learned. I think that's why I want to become a teacher, to pass on those stories, to inspire others to appreciate what we have and the sacrifices made for our freedoms." Evan listened intently, his expression shifting as he absorbed Jaden's words. "That sounds incredible. I wish I could have had that kind of influence in my life. Maybe if I had someone like your dad to guide me, I wouldn't have lost my way. Maybe you can be that person for someone else," Jaden suggested, the idea sparking a flicker of excitement within him. "You mentioned wanting to help people. What if you mentored kids who are struggling? You know what it's like to feel lost. You could provide them with the guidance you didn't have." Evan's eyes sparkled with interest. "That's a good idea. I never thought about mentoring before, but I can see how it can make a difference. I want to help kids avoid the mistakes I made." As they continued their conversation, Jaden's heart swelled with pride for Evan's willingness to change. He felt as if they were both on the cusp of something significant, a turning point in their lives that could lead to deeper fulfillment. It's amazing how just one night can shift your perspective, isn't it? Yeah, Evan replied, a hint of wonder in his voice. It's like I've been given a second chance. I want to make the most of it. The park was slowly coming to life. Joggers passed by, their rhythmic footfalls punctuating the morning stillness. Children's laughter echoed in the distance, the sound of joy infectious. Jaden couldn't help but smile at the thought that life was moving forward, no matter how much they struggled in their own personal battles. You know, we should come back here together more often. I could use the company, and I think it could help you too. Evan's face lit up with enthusiasm. I'd love that. I think it would be good for both of us to have a place where we can share our stories and keep each other accountable. As they made their way to a nearby bench, Jaden felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him for so long. They sat down, the sun now fully risen, casting a warm glow over the park. So, what's your plan moving forward? Jaden asked, genuinely curious about Evan's intentions. Evan took a moment to think, his gaze distant as he contemplated his next steps. I want to start small, maybe look into local volunteer opportunities and see if there are programs for at-risk youth. I think getting involved in something meaningful could help me find purpose beyond my past mistakes. That sounds like a great plan, Jaden said, feeling a surge of admiration for Evan's resolve. And I'll be here to support you. You don't have to do it alone. Evan looked at him, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you, Jaden. It means a lot to know that I have someone in my corner. As they sat on the bench, the world around them continued to awaken, filled with the sounds of laughter and joy. Jaden felt a sense of peace envelop him, the shadows of his past beginning to lift as he saw the possibilities of the future. He knew that while the road ahead might be challenging, it was also filled with hope and potential for growth. Hey, what do you think about making this our spot? Evan gestured around them. We could come here regularly, share stories, and hold each other accountable for our goals. I love that idea, Jaden replied, his heart swelling with excitement. This place has a special meaning for me, and I think it could become something meaningful for both of us. Evan grinned, his earlier bravado replaced by a genuine sense of purpose. It's settled then. Our spot, a place for new beginnings. As they sat together, the sun climbing higher in the sky, Jaden realized that the night they had spent in the shadows had birthed a bond that would guide them through the complexities of life. They were no longer two individuals lost in their pain. They had become allies in healing, ready to face the world together. With each passing moment, Jaden felt the weight of his grief lightening, replaced by a growing sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, their stories could intertwine in ways that would bring healing not just to themselves, but to others as well. Let's promise to come back here every week, Jaden suggested, the idea igniting a spark of excitement within him. We can check in on each other and share what we've been up to. Deal, Evan replied, extending his hand for a shake, sealing the promise with a firm grip. I can't wait to see where this journey takes us. As they left the bench, their laughter filled the air, mingling with the sounds of the park waking up around them. They stepped into the light of a new day, ready to embrace the possibilities that awaited them. In that moment, they were two young men, transformed by a chance encounter, bonded by the shared understanding of loss, and united in their quest for redemption. And as they walked away from the memorial, Jaden couldn't help but think that perhaps, in honoring his father's memory, he had also found a way to honor his own journey towards healing. Together, they would forge ahead, leaving behind the shadows of the past, stepping into the light of a future filled with hope, friendship, and the promise of new beginnings. The sun continued to rise, casting a golden hue over the park as Jaden and Evan wandered along the winding paths, their conversation flowing effortlessly. The beauty of the morning matched the warmth growing in their hearts, as they began to envision a future filled with purpose. Have you ever thought about how many people out there are struggling, just like we did? Jaden mused, glancing at Evan. It's like we're all in our own bubbles, fighting battles that no one can see. Evan nodded, his expression thoughtful. Yeah, and sometimes it takes a moment like last night for us to realize we're not alone. We don't have to stay stuck in our pain. Exactly, Jaden replied, feeling inspired. What if we started a support group here in the park? A safe space where people can come to share their stories, just like we did. It could be a way to help others find their way through the darkness. Evan's eyes lit up with excitement at the idea. That's brilliant. We could create a community, a network of people who understand and can support one another. It could be life-changing. Let's brainstorm some ideas, Jaden said, his heart racing at the thought of taking action. We could meet weekly, maybe have a theme for each session. We could invite speakers, share resources, and create a sense of belonging. As they walked, the park began to fill with the sounds of laughter and life. Families arriving for picnics, children chasing after kites, and couples strolling hand in hand. The vibrancy of the day mirrored their newfound hope, reminding them that life goes on, even in the face of hardship. What do you think we should call it? Evan asked, his mind racing with possibilities. Something that captures the essence of healing and connection. Jaden thought for a moment, then smiled. How about Paths to Healing? It reflects our journeys and how we're all finding our way in our own unique ways. Paths to Healing it is, Evan exclaimed, the name settling into their hearts like a promise. We'll make flyers, spread the word on social media, and see who shows up. I can't believe we're actually doing this. As they spoke about the logistics, a sense of clarity washed over them. They were no longer defined by their pasts. They were stepping into their power to make a difference. The shadows of doubt that once loomed over them were dissipating, replaced by the light of shared purpose. Once they reached the park center, they found a bench that overlooked a small pond, its surface glistening in the sun. They sat down, their hearts racing with anticipation. Imagine the possibilities, Jaden said, gazing at the water. We could create a space where people feel heard, valued, and understood. Evan leaned back against the bench, a contented smile spreading across his face. And we'd be helping ourselves too, in a way. By sharing our stories, we're reinforcing our own healing. I never would have thought that one night could lead to this, Jaden said, his voice filled with wonder. It feels like a turning point, not just for us, but for anyone who needs a place to feel safe. A comfortable silence enveloped them as they took in the beauty of the park. The soft rustling of leaves and the distant laughter of children created a serene backdrop, grounding them in the moment. As the sun rose higher, Evan turned to Jaden, his expression thoughtful. I've always felt like I was meant for something more, but I never knew what it was. Now, I think this is it. Me too, Jaden replied, feeling a surge of excitement. We're on the verge of something incredible, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. In the days that followed, Jaden and Evan threw themselves into planning Paths to Healing. They spent hours drafting flyers, designing social media posts, and reaching out to local organizations to spread the word. Every step felt invigorating, as if each action was a brick laid in the foundation of a new future. As they prepared for their first meeting, the excitement was palpable. They arrived at the park early, setting up chairs in a circle under the shade of an old oak tree. Jaden's heart raced with anticipation, while Evan paced back and forth, a whirlwind of energy. What if no one shows up? Evan asked, his earlier confidence wavering for a moment. They will, Jaden assured him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Even if it's just one person, that's enough. We're here to create a safe space, and the right people will find us. As the hour approached, the park began to fill with people. Jaden noticed a few familiar faces, individuals who had been in similar circumstances, and others who looked like they were seeking solace. The anxiety that had knotted in his stomach began to dissolve, replaced by an overwhelming sense of purpose. When the time finally came, Jaden stood up, his voice steady and clear. Welcome to Paths to Healing. We're so glad you're here. This is a space where we can share our stories, support one another, and find healing together. Evan chimed in, his enthusiasm infectious. No judgment, just understanding. We're all here because we've experienced loss, pain, or confusion in our lives. And together, we can start to navigate this journey. As they began to share their experiences, Jaden felt a wave of emotion wash over him. The stories echoed the struggles he and Evan had faced, each voice reinforcing the truth that they were not alone. The sense of community enveloped them, binding them through shared struggles and hopes. The meeting continued, laughter mingling with tears, as the group connected in ways they had never anticipated. Each story became a thread woven into a tapestry of resilience and understanding, illuminating the path forward. By the end of the session, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of hope and renewal. As they wrapped up, Jaden and Evan exchanged glances, the realization of what they had created settling in. "I can't believe how powerful that was," Evan said, his eyes shining with excitement. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "Absolutely," Jaden replied, feeling a sense of fulfillment. "We've opened a door for others, and who knows where it will lead?" As they cleaned up, their hearts light, Jaden looked around at the faces of those who had shared their stories, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. They had taken a step toward healing, not just for themselves, but for everyone involved. In that moment, Jaden understood that the journey of healing was not a destination, but a continuous path filled with twists and turns. Together, they would navigate it, supporting one another as they forged ahead into the light of a new day.